Hey, greetings everybody and welcome to Chill Vibes and happy videos today. We're not doing a complaining video quite yet. Don't worry, we got some stuff loaded in the cannon. This weekend we'll also be doing a little bit of a team building, talking about Kadaj and what data I have seen for him. But in the meantime, we have some outstanding content that we need to talk about. Not that the content here is particularly outstanding, but we have some stuff that we didn't get to yesterday, so it's outstanding in that sense. Boy, English is fun, isn't it? Anyway, all right, so today we're going to be talking about the Wotv calc data, as well as some stuff to do with water Veritas. Now, my water Veritas, I'm pretty proud of this because I have put in the time over weeks, and I can finally say that, hey, my water Veritas is 140. She's been upgraded all the way to the top. Of course, there are reincarnations to do, which I haven't done any yet, but I'm happy to be here with the people who have grinded their way out. Also, yesterday we talked about her limit burst, which there isn't a limit burst upgrade yet, but there is an actual limit burst. And we showed that off, and it looks pretty cool. But we didn't talk about all of the details of this because only through my testing did I have certain numbers, and I kind of wanted to see the final stuff to do with that, because the number seemed a little bit weird, but it turns out that it is actually true. So if Wotv calc would, thought I had this ready, but have you, speaking just as an alternative or just something else, has anyone noticed that Wotv calc sometimes just doesn't load data anymore? Like when you try and look at units and it just doesn't. Not complaining in the sense of being like, oh, Wotv calc is bad and people who made it were awesome. But it does seem to be an issue that I have loading. Maybe it's my browser. All right, so got it. So limit burst now decreases spirit by 38 for 3 turns, decreases defense by 30 for 3 turns, and AoE resistance by 30 for 3 turns. It's a pretty interesting attack. I mean, it's already doing 240% damage, which is pretty good. But I have to say, 38 is an interesting number for Spirit, but given how much defense people can stack nowadays, pretty decent. Thought I was going to sneeze and then I didn't. Either way, the limit burst I think is generally pretty good. And the one thing we didn't talk about yesterday was the weapon that has been added to the game. That's right, there is a weapon for Water Veritas. This is going to be a thing for all of the Veritas units. Whether or not these are better than, reliquaries and whatnot, well, we'll have to see. But 190 magic, potentially, or an aim version or a critical version is the order of the day. And getting this, I mean, the condition for Water Veritas is very strong. In general, this weapon just gives 20 magic attack resistance penetration, nothing that would merit most characters running this as opposed to something that's more specialized for them. But for Water Veritas, water attack up by 30, physical damage reduction 15% when her HP is over 70%, and also decreases AP by 15 on attacks, which is interesting when her HP is over 70%. It's pretty cool. It does give her a lot more utility and does round out her abilities much better. If mages weren't completely dead at the moment, I'd be more positive. But there's one other thing we need to touch on here, which is the cost. It's all well and good looking at this from the outside and saying, hey, Umbra, that seems pretty darn decent, right? Well, as per usual, Gumi is gonna Gumi, and up until this point, you need 120 coins to get the character, shitload of coins to be able to get all of her shards, a bunch more to do all of her reincarnations, and now you need 15 a piece for each copy of this weapon. So going on the assumption that eventually this will get a +6 version, that would mean roughly about 960-ish coins. I'm not going to math this out super hard here on video. I think I did it yesterday. And that roughly works out to most people doing about 10 per week, which is a freaking lot. It is a lot and another big ask. I really hope that the next series of Verituses are not going to follow this pattern. That could mean something entirely else that might be negative in another way, but boy oh boy, this type of grinding just... I thought we were over this. Can't even background farm this. To me. Okay. But anyway, getting back to it, let's check out just some other numbers really quickly. There's not much to say about this. The vision card was something I didn't talk about yesterday. It is being rated fairly highly by most rated websites at this point. 349 HP, 12 AP, 158 attack. Taking a look at party effects, luck up by 42%, agility by 12%, and magic resistance by 20. It is overall really good. Accuracy also just a 15 boost, which for greatsword teams right now is seeming really, really good. Also for fist users in general who are trying to do evadey style stuff, another luck-based card is potentially very, very welcome. Strike attack resistance penetration of 20 just for the specific unit involved is also really good. Not just for Tifa, but for a ton of other units. And attack plus 10%. This VC is really, really nice. As a holo VC, love the artwork effects. It's good. All right. Going through the 3 limit burst upgrades for older units. Taking a look at the limit burst here, reduce counter chance by 100, single target resistance by a factor of 80, which is better than we thought it was going to be. Modifier also increases by 100% if auto restore or haste is in effect, and still has a 67% chance paralyzed, dispels, auto restore, and haste. So I actually think this is way better. At 33 AP with a good range on it and a strong counter, it is do or die with this. Like, this could be really interesting against Ashen Mont. You're also shredding a shed load of single target resistance. So this may be one of the better limit bursts I've seen in a long time, because I can see an actual application where in PvP would be very useful right now. It is solely focused on a single unit though. I don't know. Ashen Mont parties could always adjust to this. If Wind is, just trying to do too much of relying on this, then Ashen Mont could just put with some ice units as well as Oldoa, and that could just ruin it. This isn't a select 2 target, so it really depends on the party. But I can see this being an upgrade that Varush people will be very happy with, because it does give Varush a, very good thing to actually be doing most things. All right, as for Wingstern, we already talked about it yesterday, but all the things that this essentially does, it does a bunch of stuff now. It's a really good ability for Wingstern. The numbers haven't changed my opinion at all, since essentially it is one really good ability, and that is not enough to fix most of the time a unit that has other problems like wing. So just general kit probably does. As for Ronald McDonald, sorry, not true. He is quite interesting for a bunch of reasons. I was talking about with UR Ashen Mont. I always want to call him UR Mont, but there is a UR Mont, Ash Mont or Ass Mont, depending on effective limit burst here. Decreasing, the resistance, potential protection against Varush in general. Giving healing power increases, also just upgrades his healing. Varush is the one that I can generally see being the best, but I might actually give it a little bit more here. Not being able to debuff your opponent is really cool, but it's on such a short range that most of the time, are you even going to be able to really prevent too much debuffs before your opponents get in? Tough to say, but Reagan and Varush, I'm probably today just think more positively on their limit than yesterday. All right, and Kadaj as a character we talked about yesterday, but we have a little bit more in specific for numbers today. The Trust Mastery is minus 30% attack for 4 turns when it hits. And it's interesting for allies too. So you can actually throw this. This TMR can give a pretty nice debuff for a bunch of different allies, not just Kadaj. Cool. Also decreasing human killer by a factor of 20, which, there are a lot more human killer going around, but it's interesting. Kadaj really, with the elemental resistance that he can stack on himself, and it makes himself very, very difficult to kill, and potentially, like, as the fight goes on longer. And since his endurance is quite high with that, I mean, as much as people are going to say that Kadaj doesn't look generally good right now, I want to posit the idea that the Katana-based vision card that is coming with Sephiroth, or slightly after Sephiroth, if that has any elemental resistance on it, and this trend continues with Sephi, running a triple Sephi team with a shitload of elemental resistance that wears your opponent down and prevents healing might be the actual ticket, since you can dispel auto rays and immortal spirit, and units that are protecting those kind of things are kind of on the downswing right now. There might be something more here than initially thought. Dream ability is an extra source of defense and single target resistance. Taking a look about just his kit, limit burst is just 30% extra hit chance, 5% 8 turn, just for those numbers, for numbers sake. If he kills an opponent with his one ability, he does restore AP for himself. It looks by 15, although the numbers are quite weird there, so that might just be being weird. As for Hunter is an agility and attack boost increase, which might be better for running. I mean, overall, his sub part of his kit didn't look really impressive except for chaining, so Hunter might be just one of those things where you actually equip for this one buff skill and then just disable everything else. I mean, the accuracy is pretty good and range increase might be decent, but Hunter's skills, so in general, there is something valuable here in terms of Strider. Again, attack buff for himself and allies, as well as anti-spirit, which spirit not super important since mages are sort of dead. Does give him slow, does give him ways of decreasing magic attacks and breaking barriers, but all at very, very short range. As for the rest of his kit, it turns out that he does have a second support-based skill for his main job. So here, yeah, this one you're essentially always running that gives elemental resistance of 15%. But this one, the secondary one that was foregone, quite interesting. Slash resistance and missile resistance. The slash could be useful. Missile, not so much quite yet. And it's interesting that they've gone for Battle Strider over it for accuracy and defense penetration. But his offensive abilities weren't already looking super impressive yesterday, so interesting. Counters, not too terribly much to say here. Battle Strider, counter all damage, reduce damage taken, or just evade all physical attacks at 50%. It's fine. Looking at his main job, again, there wasn't really anything that I think was going to be too interesting. Decreases AP consumption by 30 itself for 4 turns, which is very nice. Increases slash attack resistance 40, and his elemental resistance, we already figured out, 20% up. As for increased hit chance, 30% here. His buff ability does get increased twice, being this human killer by 30 for 4 turns when attacking for allies, so it is coded to actually give that to allies. Haste is only for himself. Human resistance is 25% for 4 turns for self only, so he does not actually pass that along to of his allies, and grants the chance of physical damage reduction by 15% for 4 turns. For 3 turns for 4 turns, as well as on hit self critical rate for turns, and dispels auto restore. So there's a lot of stuff in this ability. It is the loaded ability. It does a bunch of stuff, but it doesn't do a ton for allies. Mostly does a bunch for him, and that is something interesting that I was curious about yesterday. So good to know. As for his job level 25, it is a 100% hit chance, and it does have defense shred of 80%, which is very, 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 very high. I gave this a thumbs up to for Rush, but that was for single target. And here, I mean, it is generally nice for a physical attacker to get through physical defense. That's a huge percentage shred, so it is really quite good. Anyway, there isn't really too much. I just wanted to go through the actual numbers of this character, mainly because it was something that we missed in a previous video, and I think those numbers are important for contextualizing how good this unit is. Of course, my opinion about Kadaj is pretty much the same about all Advent Children and stuff for globalers who are planning this out, which is wait till next week. It sucks to kind of put this off for so long, but yeah, it kind of does depend what the next version of actual Sephiroth looks like for whether the katana idea works here. Because just generally water doesn't seem particularly exciting for this character. So him with other characters such as Ash and Mont, still need to see the proof before I'm really convinced. But yeah, I'm waiting for fire. That's the big thing. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Take care. See you later.